There we are. All right. All right. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm a bit late. My computer was being a little slow. Can everyone hear me? Awesome. Okay, so I hope everybody had a good weekend. Looks like it's going to be a nice sunny day today. That's good. I need one of those as we approach the end of the term. Hey, this is week 12 or 11. Or you know what? Well, we're getting there. Oh, week 11, according to these slides. So we have this week, next week, and then on our 13th week of class, there's only one class that week. So we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Now, let's share my screen. The plan for today is to finish very quickly the slides for technological determinism, which we were almost there. Let's see where we were. And then we'll quickly talk about, well, not too quickly, but we'll talk about the chapter on autonomous technology, which is quite short. So remember, we talked a lot last time about Marshall McLuhan's work, the global village, communications, media, and let's see. We left off, we were talking about examples like this of cultural determination of technology. Let's pick it up from this slide, just to sort of reiterate some of the examples. All right. Computer is so slow. Come on, computer. So, yeah, it would. Just an overall better computer. I'd love a solid state drive. I'd love something with a faster processor. It's because I had a decent computer, which then died on me, and I've been borrowing this one from my younger sister ever since, because she's got a couple computers. So what I need to do is just buy a better computer. But yeah, a solid state drive would probably make my life easier. You're right about that. So we were talking about the cultural determination of technology. So this kind of stands in opposition to technological determinism. And Dusek gave us some examples of where culture seems to determine technology rather than technology determining society and culture. One example that we discussed briefly was the failure of ancient Greek society to adopt machinery. That's because, so it is argued in the book, that their labor system was based on slave labor instead of wage labor. Of course, as I think it was Max pointed out last time, there's some contention with this theory. But the idea here, if true, is that since they're not paying a wage, they don't have to save money on those wages by using machinery. I guess the counter argument is like, well, you're still spending money to care for these folks, because in ancient Greece, if you were an enslaved person, you were kind of made a part of the household. So your owners were responsible for you, right? You couldn't just mistreat enslaved peoples in ancient Greece. We talked also about how in monasteries in the Dark Ages, mechanical devices were developed there They had to save labor there because, of course, if you're living in a monastery, you have to grow crops to feed yourself, and you also have religious duties to perform. You have to pray, you have to illuminate texts, you have to help the poor, you have to do all kinds of things. So mechanical devices were developed to save labor and to keep time. And it's worth noting in some of the early, a lot of the Dark Age philosophers, unless they're, not Thomas Aquinas, but folks like William of Ockham, were living in monasteries. So they weren't just inventing things, they were also doing a little philosophy. I think the last example I left off with was this record playback lathe. A lathe, like a carpentry lathe, like wood turning. Numerically controlled lathes, computerized lathes, eventually replaced an earlier record playback lathe. This earlier version could record the movements of a skilled carpenter and sort of play it back, so that the carpenter only had to supervise the lathe and not actually have to do any lathing himself, right? Noble claims that the switch actually happened because the numerical lathe puts control of production in the hands of designers rather than in the carpenters. So that's an interesting example where culture, in this case, I suppose corporate culture, influences the adoption of technology. Now, if I can get to the next slide. Oh, there we go. Oh, another example is the bicycle. And you'll want to think here of those old-timey bicycles, as I like to call them. You know, the ones with the really big front wheels and the very small back wheels. That's one sort of bicycle. That would have been the one built for speed. But we have others that are maybe built for balance and stability. And there was a sort of competition between those two designs. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name here. It may actually be biker, but I'm not sure if that J is silent. A penny farthing, yeah, a penny farthing. I always forget the actual name. Thanks, Zach. Yeah, one of these would be the penny farthing. And in Bishker, biker, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his name. But in the study of the bicycle, different early designs, Dusek writes, maximize speed at the expense of safety or maximize safety with a sacrifice of speed. The early bicycles with a huge front wheel were built for speed, but were harder to balance and led to a rider's fall from a greater height if they tipped. The early versions of the smaller wheeled bicycles were safer but less fast. Different users, those interested in racing and those interested in leisurely recreational touring, preferred different designs. The big-wheeled, fast but unstable models attracted primarily athletic young men. The resulting standard bicycle was a product of the pushes and pulls of the divergent interest groups. So, basically, different groups that we have to market our bicycles to. Come here, Tula. Sorry, my dog's being silly. Come here, Tula. Come here. Come here. Lie down. Lie down. So market forces, basically, I guess is what I'm trying to say here, sort of pushing and pulling, affecting the design of the technology until we end up with something like the modern bicycle, something that has smaller wheels and maybe isn't as fast if you don't have, if you don't have a gear system on it. But of course, that's why we eventually introduced those, right? Mountain bikes, different kinds of racing bikes are much more stable than these penny farthing predecessors, but they can still go fast. And that's because of the introduction of the gear system. Another example Dusek covers is the AIDS medical research trials. And this one's interesting too. He writes, an example that Andrew Feenberg uses is the influence of AIDS patients on drug trial protocols. Since untreated AIDS is fatal, The sort of double-blind medical tests usually used were, in fact, sacrificing the lives of those patients who were given placebos and told that they were getting AIDS drugs. Patients rebelled against this situation. At first, the medical researchers saw the resistance as anti-scientific and irrational. However, eventually researchers came to work with the patient advocacy groups. The latter became extremely well-informed scientifically and influenced the drug testing procedures. Feinberg notes that the overly strict identification of medicine with pure science neglects the normative elements of medical treatment procedures. The attention and study given to experimental subjects often offers the kind of personal care that chronic patients miss and value. So really interesting here is, and this is true, by the way, that nowadays we would say it would be quite unethical to do a drug test this way, where we have a double-blind test with a placebo group. And that's because, think about it. If you have acquired immune deficiency syndrome, and you're going for a trial, you're probably hoping that you're getting the medicine, right? But you cannot know whether you are or you are not in a double-blind study. So why not just give everybody the medicine, basically, is what these patient advocacy groups argued. And that's eventually what we started to do. We still have this problem in the developing world, though. A lot of new drug trials take place in the developing world, and one interesting ethical issue is, communicating that they are in fact in this kind of trial when people are sick, and their only chance to get medicine might be to sign up for a trial. And you have to tell them, well, you actually might end up in the placebo group, right? It's just a little misleading. It's a little, it's not cool. I think it's ethically questionable. Max, that's a cool recommendation. Thank you. When Experiments Travel by Adrina Petrina. I'll have to check that out. I learned about this in a bioethics class back in the day. That's where I it was actually a class I was in that I did not finish. It was with our very own Vita Panich from Carleton University. Awesome prof, but I had a very bad roommate situation occur. I lived in residence, and the stress of that caused me to drop the class kind of like at the last minute, because there was no way I was writing any essays or anything after what was going on with my situation in residence. So the class was good. The problem was my living situation. So don't want to give anyone the wrong impression. If you can take a bioethics class with Dr. Panich, you really should. Max also liked her class, he says. So that's great. And this is great. Thank you, Max, for this. This is the source for this kind of thing. It's good to know about if you're interested in medical ethics. And just to point out at the end, the attention and study given to patients in experimental trials is what, a lot of chronic patients would love that kind of care, even for fairly mild health conditions. I remember toward the end of grad school, I had sciatica, where your sciatic nerve, which kind of goes out from your spine, your lower spine, and kind of goes down each leg. You have one down each leg. And it can become pinched. In my case, it was being pinched because of a sort of bulge in one of my lumbar discs, right? It's not slipped or herniated. Basically, the doctor explained it like, oh, you're getting older and you're tall, so enjoy life. This is what you have to look forward to. But gosh darn it, it took forever to get anywhere on this, because it wasn't life-threatening. Sciatica is not life-threatening, but try being in pain for 2 years. That definitely is tiring and not fun. Cheers, Max. Yeah, just to get back to the book there. Oh my goodness. Oh, sorry, more coffee. So I was thinking of that example, my sciatica experience, because it was a lot of just going to the clinic, being told to take Advil. And I'm like, but there's got to be something we can do. And I really had to advocate for myself, because doctors are busy people. You go into the clinic. If you don't have a family doctor like I don't, you go into the clinic, you talk to them for 5 or 10 minutes, and then you're out of there. Like, so yeah, I think that this yeah, this is a good point this raised here. And when I encountered this, I just thought of my little sciatica experience. 2 years. Oh, wasn't fun. I cured it. Well, the story is, eventually, after advocating for myself, come on, computer, I was able to go and get an MRI, and the MRI revealed the disc, which was the source of the pain. It was textbook sciatica, they told me. And I was taking something for the pain. I was taking naproxen for the pain. But one of the doctors that I was working with said, you know what you should do? You should walk, because she had just been to a conference where somebody had presented some research where they found that 6 months out from initial diagnosis and beginning of treatment, walking was as effective as physiotherapy. And I had already tried physiotherapy. So I thought, what the heck, it can't hurt. So I just walked everywhere. Yeah, it's gone. So I continue to walk. And thanks to the doctor, you need this kind of attention and care. And you don't usually get it. Yeah, also walking is really good. Yeah, walking is fun. You can see some stuff. If you have a dog, take your dog. If you have a human, go with your human. Vicente, that's a good point. One thing we can take from homeopathic treatments is that doctors may want to make their patients feel, yeah. I mean, it wasn't just walking. Like, I had to walk the right way. You had to walk and keep your back straight and keep your core engaged. You kind of always have to like suck in, like keep the abs tight and stuff, and keep the spinal erectors up. And also the medicine got rid of the pain. It's an anti-inflammatory, so it got some of the inflammation down, which meant that I could walk and get some exercise and get those muscles built up around the and support the spine around the injury, right? But Vicente's point, yes, imagine if we could have medicine rather than homeopathy, but the doctors cared as much as like naturopaths and homeopaths do. That would be the perfect combination. I think the last example is the snowmobile. And there's some interesting discussion there as well, from Arnold Pacey that Dusek draws on. He discusses, quote, how the snowmobile used by recreational users in southern Canada and in the northern Canada, or in the northern USA, is basically the same device as used by Inuits in far northern Canada. However, the routine of maintenance and use is very different. For example, a recreational user in, say, southern Ontario probably doesn't ride their snowmobile very far from home. An Inuit probably needs that machine for hunting or travel, or things that are important for survival. So they're going to go very far from home potentially. So they're going to need to service the machine differently. They're going to need to carry extra fuel. Maybe when they're not using it, they're going to bring it inside and actually keep it, instead of in a garage, in the house, to keep it as warm as possible, so that it's easier to get going when you need it, right? So different routines, different ways of servicing the machines based on the culture and the location. So, just generally speaking, this sort of thing is what you might hear from science and technology studies, people in that area that reject technological determinism. But we can also see here that we're maybe just flirting with another kind of determinism, cultural determinism, right? So we're kind of trading one for the other. Technological determinism, oh, we don't want that. But if the alternative is just another kind of determinism, I don't know, is that good or bad? I suppose it's not all bad. After all, at least with culture, there's the opportunity for people to, be involved, I suppose, right? At least some of the time. I don't know. Okay, so it's 12 p.m. according to my phone. So let us go to the next chapter. The next chapter is autonomous technology, and it is a little short, but that's okay. Even if we don't go all the way to the end of class, I think I'm okay with that. Tuesdays are like my Monday. So yeah. Oh, hi, Tula. All right. So here we are talking about autonomous technology, which is very closely related to technological determinism, as we learned previously. The claim, writes Dusek, that technology as autonomous is the claim that technology is independent of human control or decision. Technology is claimed to have a logic of its own, or more metaphorically, technology has a life of its own. And this is associated primarily with Jacques Ellul. He wrote a book in 1954, or rather published one in 1954, called The Technological Society, where he talks a lot about autonomous technology. Seems paradoxical, but maybe on a first pass, autonomous technology seems paradoxical, but I don't think it is. And just to get this out of the way, when we're talking about autonomous technology here, we're not talking about self-driving cars necessarily, right? I mean, autonomous vehicles are a kind of autonomous technology in that they will one day be able to operate independently of human control or decision, but also technology itself, not particular artifacts, but technology itself here is claimed to be autonomous. Not a robot necessarily, not necessarily a robot that programs itself, although something like that would certainly be autonomous. Rather, autonomous technology, that claim refers to the technological system and the fact that nobody's in control of it, right? That's what autonomous technology really means. Like Ellul, for example, argued that technocrats or engineers, designers, inventors, right, scientists, they're actually quite ignorant of the social and political effects of the technology that they invent. Yeah, AI would be, some AI could be a type of autonomous technology, but as we'll see, the autonomous technology thesis is about technology in general, right? It's not just about particular artifacts that can operate without human input or without human control. It's not just that. It's the whole system. The whole system is autonomous. Well, the difference is that one doesn't necessarily imply the other, right? So autonomous technology might operate outside of human control. And if that technology also determines society and culture, then, there are two sides of the same coin. But as we saw at the beginning of the previous chapter, that doesn't have to be the case, right? It doesn't, we could have technological determinism without autonomous technology, right? We could still be in control or think we're in control in a sense. But yeah, I don't know. Let's go back. You know what? Why don't we briefly go back, and I'm just going to reread that bit from from the beginning of the previous chapter. Now, where's my book? Oh, it's right there. I don't want to mislead you, because I had the same. I kind of constantly asked myself this as well as I was reading through the material. I'm like, but they sound pretty much the same, but I guess they're not the same. But I remember Dusek's examples were, I don't know if I bought them entirely. In any case, let's go back to the beginning of technological determinism here, and I'll just read what Dusek says. So technological determinism is the claim that technology causes or determines the structure of the rest of society and culture. Autonomous technology is the claim that technology is not in human control, that it develops with a logic of its own. These two theses are related. Autonomous technology generally presupposes technological determinism. If technology determines the rest of culture, then culture and society cannot affect the direction of technology. Okay, so autonomous technology presupposes determinism. So I guess that's a way of saying that technological determinism applies autonomous technology, but technological determinism does not, on the face of it, presuppose autonomous technology. It could be that free creative inventors devise technology, but that this technology determines the rest of society and culture. This would leave the inventors outside of the deterministic system as free agents. I think that's the example that I had a little bit of an issue with, because who's going to just invent anything in a vacuum like that? Yeah, this example really strains my imagination. But so Dusek says technological determinism doesn't imply autonomous technology necessarily, but you feel free to disagree with that. I'm not sure that I agree with it. So yeah, so they're very interrelated. I can't see. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I understand, especially in the morning. Well, I know it's not that early, but I'm a bit of a night owl, and yeah, end of the semester. Oh boy, I can't wait. I can't wait. Anyway, okay. So is autonomous technology really paradoxical though? Like, we invent technology, so how could it not be under human control? That's what Dusek means. Isn't that paradoxical? No, maybe not. Alul argues that the inventors, the engineers, the scientists are largely ignorant of social and political effects of their technology, while at the other side of things, politicians are ignorant of the science and technology. So the politicians who are making policy decisions and forming laws and whatnot don't actually know how the science and technology work by and large. And the technocrats don't actually know how, or I guess they're not technocrats because they're not in charge, but engineers, inventors, scientists are ignorant of the politics. The public is often ignorant about both. Elul argues. Religious figures, religious leaders, more accurately, are supposed to deal with issues of value, including those concerning technology, but they are likewise ignorant of science and technology. Philosophers generally aren't, but the problem is that no one listens to them. So, I mean, unless maybe you're in a university and you're taking a class like this one, right? So this is kind of how, and I'm painting with broad strokes here, but this is how Elul kind of lays this all out for us. Now, throughout this rather short chapter, Dusek kind of just iterates through a lot of different beliefs regarding the scientific method and the nature of technology, and how these beliefs support the autonomous technology thesis. So I'm just going to kind of iterate through those. One has to do with the scientific method. On page 106, Dusek writes, if one thinks of scientific method as fairly mechanical and cut and dried, such as the Baconian inductive method, and thinks that the nature of reality, not human interpretation and theories, is what determines the sequence of scientific discoveries, then the sequence of scientific discoveries is predetermined and linear. Right? That seems to apply, if determinism, if scientific determinism and technological determinism is true, then it's plausible that the autonomous technology thesis is true. But there are other ways of thinking about science and technology, aren't there? Right? I mean, we learned about the Baconian inductive method right off the bat. And we learned that, at least by modern standards, it's certainly not a complete understanding of what scientists do. Scientists also try and verify, they try and falsify. Yeah, that's a good point. You can't just go straight to nuclear power plants from the wheel. There's a sort of a progression that you have to go through. But is it necessarily linear? I don't know. Is progress even a thing? I mean, think about it. Everywhere from ancient Greece to ancient Rome to the Middle East, to ancient India, ancient China, all had very sophisticated levels of technology, but none of them ever embraced the steam engine and had an industrial revolution. So the European Enlightenment kind of worldview is like, oh, well, progress, right? That's why progress. We're working towards something. We're getting better. But really, is progress a thing, or was the European Enlightenment just kind of a fluke? Was it kind of just, were we just lucky? Because many other great civilizations did not industrialize, right? Like that. So I don't know. Maybe progress is an illusion. Further, if technology is simply applied science, then the necessary logic of the linear sequence of scientific discoveries predetermines the linear sequence of technological applications. Very rarely is a technology withdrawn once it has been introduced. I don't know. Thoughts? Do we agree? There does certainly seem to be something to this roughly linear sequence of scientific discovery and technological development. And I think we saw that last time when we talked about co-discovering things. Leibniz and Newton co-discovering calculus. Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace co-discovering evolution by natural selection. They couldn't have made those leaps unless other things had already got done before, right? We wouldn't have had a Newton or a Leibniz without Kepler, Galileo, Descartes, and Copernicus, right? So there is a sort of thing that seems linear. It seems linear, but maybe there's many ways to get there. I'm not sure. So a couple things in the chat. So Stefan says, we could say, for instance, Zeppelins are withdrawn, but the actual figurative benefit is almost never discarded. Oh, that's a really interesting point. Yeah. Maybe the means of flight have changed, but the goal of air travel remains a goal nonetheless, right? And we still do have some Zeppelins. They're mostly, kind of for spectacle, right? But they exist, and they just use helium, like the Goodyear blimp, right? Have you guys seen the Goodyear blimp? I'm sure there's other examples, but yeah, the Hindenburg was a huge disaster, and it's what made us stop using hydrogen in our Zeppelins. Isn't technology withdrawn or reduced when a more efficient technology is developed, or we find out it's harmful? Yeah, I was going to say the only examples that I can think of technology being withdrawn are, like things that are found to be harmful, like asbestos, or even something simple like, think about like buckyballs. Remember those buckyballs? I always wanted to get a set of buckyballs. There's those little magnetic balls that you can make shapes out of. Problem is, little kids would swallow them, and these are like powerful magnets, so they could stick together and cause you harm, damage your organs. So they had to stop selling those. I think you can still get them somewhere. Oh, Tesla towers for wireless electricity. Would that have worked? I don't know. I don't know enough about electricity to really evaluate Tesla's wireless energy project, but pencils, yeah. But pencils are still pencils. We just use graphite instead of lead, right? Oh, Cameron still has some buckyballs. Nice. But yeah, I mean, it's true. Like I can't think of a technology being withdrawn once it's been introduced. Maybe we'll get there within the near future with respect to the internal combustion engine because of the proliferation of electric cars. But I can't see the internal combustion engine completely going away. I'm not sure. But anyway. Oh, I'm already on the next slide. Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. What other beliefs about the scientific method or technology support this claim? Well, Dusek writes, another feature of technology that supports the autonomous technology thesis is its tendency to spawn more technology. Ellul notes, as have others, that technologies constantly produce unanticipated problems. Oh, whoa, excuse me. Generally, the solution to these problems is more technology, not the rejection of technology, right? Could we think of an example for that? Let's see, more technology. Well, we're on our screens a lot, right? Windows update, yeah, constant. I was thinking of those blue light glasses, like, because we're always looking at a screen and the light can affect you or something. I don't know. I'm not sure if I really buy those blue light glasses. I think they might be a little bit of a flim flam myself. But let's say it's true that staring at a screen strains the eyes and makes it more difficult to fall asleep. You could put your phone down, or you could wear blue light glasses, right? Which are supposed to filter the specific wavelengths that might keep you awake because they're too much like sunlight. There's a lot of nonsense surrounding this. I mean, the way that these are marketed as if they will save your eyes from permanent damage is just crazy. There's a CBC Marketplace documentary on this that you can check out that kind of they go undercover, and you've got people selling you blue light glasses that, like, oh, you need these or your eyes will get damaged eventually, and you'll get like eye cancer or go blind or something. Absolute nonsense. But maybe staring at a screen is not the best thing to do before bed. Are blue light lenses going to help with that? I don't know. But yeah, so more technology rather than, just not using your phone as much. Same with Windows Update. We're always getting a new version of Windows. But, there's good reasons why, right? You want to update Windows because there's vulnerabilities in your operating system. Maybe most hackers, you know how most hackers hack? They when Windows is updated, or any operating system or any program is updated, they give you a list of all the things they fix. So now a hacker knows every vulnerability that the previous version of the software has. So all they have to do is just target people that haven't updated their software because they know all the vulnerabilities. You see? So it's important to update. Keep your software up to date, people. You don't want to get hacked. Okay. A little further claimed that society, more often than not, adjusts to technology. It's not usually technology adjusting to society, right? And recall further that, as Dusek writes here, quote, Ellul himself prefers the term technique to technology and identifies technique with a set of means and relationships and rules for achieving maximum efficiency in the adjustment of means to ends. Remember, rules, not tools, right? That is Ellul's technique. Ellul's characterization of technique fits with the definition of technology as rules. Yeah, because rules, not tools. That's what Ellul says. Right. So the rules, the sort of technique, the rules, not tools understanding of of technology supports the autonomous technology thesis. What about the systems definition? Remember, this is technology is a system, not just the artifacts, but people and the way that they're organized. That's the whole technological system. It can also support the autonomous technology thesis. And this is what Langdon Winner calls reverse adaptation. Come here, Toots. Come here. Come on up here. Lie down. Sorry, I have to talk to my dog. Yeah, okay, so Langdon Winner calls this reverse adaptation. Dusek writes, in what he calls reverse adaptation, the technological system, particularly its social components, so we're talking people, institutions, laws, stuff like that, adapts the society to technology rather than vice versa. So here, the acceptance of particular technologies, or even technology in general, is advertised by not just companies, but governments and all sorts of different groups, is advertised with the aim of getting society to accept technology, right? Government institutions do this. They do this with members of government and members of society. Large corporations can lobby governments too. They lobby governments to support acceptance and adoption of the technologies they produce. These companies can get big, giant grants from the government to develop their technology, right? Tesla is a perfect example of this. Tesla relied on a lot of federal funding, a lot of federal grant money to develop their electronic car technology. Oh, and vaccines. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good example. The example in the book is the Price-Anderson Act, which I believe is a result of lobbying by like nuclear power groups and insurance companies. Basically, if there were ever a nuclear disaster in the United States, it would be just far too expensive to pay everybody out the insurance money that they would really be owed. So the Price-Anderson Act limits the money that insurance companies would have to pay in the event of a nuclear disaster, even though that money would not nearly be enough for like your medical bills and moving and your house, your home. So that's one example that comes up in the text. Oh, goodness gracious! So sleepy. Further, Winner also emphasizes that the tool model of technology misleads us. It misleads us about the nature of modern technological systems, right? Dusek explains it like this. He writes, the notion that man controls technology not only assumes a kind of collective person, but treats modern technology as a tool that could be manipulated by an individual. An individual uses the tool for a particular purpose to reach a particular goal. The technological system, on the other hand, at best, has its end products utilized by consumers, but is not really used in the sense of guided toward a particular purpose by anyone. So technology, I guess in Aristotle would say technology, the technological system doesn't have a telos, right? We use the consumer goods. In this sense, is my computer really technology? We're talking about the systems definition. So maybe my computer's not technology. My computer may just be an artifact. Really, technology is the system that produces my computer and gets me to buy it and use it, right? And even those who have some control in the system, inventors, engineers, politicians, whomever, they only control a small part of the entire system. And so nobody's really in control. This is really what autonomous technology is all about. This is what the claim is all about. The idea that nobody is in control, right? Just to paraphrase Heidegger from the beginning of the question concerning technology, you know, we want a free relationship with technology. But if we just think that we control it, well, then we're just giving ourselves over to technology. And there's some commonalities with Heidegger's thought and Winner's thought. I think they both, I think, saying something similar about what technology does. So Winner and also Ellul think the goals of technology, you know, happiness, prosperity, freedom, progress, nice things, are empty in terms of content. Rather, through reverse adaptation, the goals of technology are given content that fit the means available, right? And just remember, reverse adaptation is sort of tweaking society to fit the technology, right? Rather than technology to fit society. But think of it, you know, I really get the, I like thinking of car commercials here. You know, those car commercials that are like, you know, driving, you're free, freedom, right? Because you have a car, a nice car, you have freedom. But really, do you have freedom if you own a car? Do you have more freedom? I don't know. You have to pay for insurance, you have to pay for gas. I know a lot of, well, not anymore, but when I was younger, I knew some younger fellows who, you know, wanted to have a really awesome car, and they got one, and then, you know, insurance is expensive, maintenance is expensive, gas is expensive, just end up working 2 jobs to keep a cool car. That doesn't sound very free, right? But through reverse adaptation, you know, a lot of the vague, lofty sort of goals of technology are given content, like happiness. Technology can bring us happiness. Well, what does that mean? Well, that's given content that fits the means available. Maybe technology makes me happy. Maybe a particular application makes me happy. Maybe playing my favorite video game makes me happy. And video games are something that we can do. We can make those. We have the means to make those. So technology will make you happy is a rather vacuous claim. But certain artifacts can be used to sort of give that claim its content, right? So, you know, with all of the like the trucker protests and stuff, you may have seen some of the protesters talking about a number of different conspiracy theories. There seems to be this new one about the World Economic Forum, and how the World Economic Forum, I'm sorry, I can't keep a straight face when I talk about this stuff, but the World Economic Forum is going to institute some kind of new world order and social credit system, right? A lot of this misinformation was what was driving that protest. But like all conspiracy theories, there's a grain of truth to the idea that technocrats really do want to be in charge and build an ideal society. It's just that the World Economic Forum is not that. That's not what it is. But there is this idea in the public consciousness. I just mentioned the conspiracy theories because whether you see, whether you know about these conspiracy theories from the trucker protest or whether you've seen them sort of made fun of on television. There was a show on Netflix. Oh, I can't remember what it was called. It was animated. And it was about a scientist who works for the government, and they're the ones in charge of all the conspiracy theories. God, I can't remember the name. I just watched it. It was pretty funny though. But shows like that where they make fun of conspiracy theories, or really, hey, a conspiracy theory makes a good story in a show. It makes an interesting story. And all of them feature this idea that there's this elite in control, your Illuminati, right? Or your lizard people that are in control. That's sort of the extreme version, I suppose, of the anti-autonomous technology thesis, right? That there's like this select few who actually are in control of everything. Autonomous technology is right on the other end of that. It's like Winner's right over here. He says technology is actually not in, no one is in control. No one is in control. And I think this is absolutely far more plausible than any conspiracy theory, that you might hear. So there's no, yeah. And I would add to that further that when we think we're in control of technology, again, maybe paraphrasing Heidegger, that's when we're really not in control of technology, because that is indicative of a misunderstanding of how technology works. Technology isn't a tool. Technology is not tools. Technology is, for Ellul, it's a system of rules. For the systems theorist, it's the systems of people around the tools. For Heidegger, it's a way of being. It is to us in the technological age what religion was in the Dark Ages, right? So, yeah. Anyway, Dusek points out also, and I'm quoting here, autonomous technology, with its emphasis on the incomprehensible complexity of modern technological systems, rejects one of the theses of the precursors of the social construction of technology notion. Vico and Hobbes claim that we truly know that which we make or construct. However, much that we make develops a complexity that outruns our ability to understand it. Good examples here are deep learning neural networks, or maybe evolutionary or genetic algorithms. I'll just talk about the first one because that's what I'm more familiar with. But in a deep learning neural network, there's really some mystery as to what the network actually looks like when it's all done. A deep learning network has many, many layers. We might have, we have an input layer and an output layer always, and then we have hidden layers in the middle. A deep learning network is a type of network that has many, many hidden layers. And it's somewhat mysterious what's actually going on in there. We could train two networks, build them the same, initialize them. They're all set up with random weighted connections and random activation thresholds, and we train them to do the same task. They could both get equally good at that task, but if we could open up and see the patterns of activity in each network, they would be completely different. And because all of the representations are distributed throughout the entire network, it's very difficult to see computationally what the heck is going on. Deep learning neural networks are still a little bit mysterious. We can get them to do things, but if you were like to ask somebody, explain exactly the information processing that's going on in this network and why it's different from this one, it would be very difficult to do that. Because these are not discrete things like digital computers. It's distributed representations, not discrete representations like a digital computer. So, blah, 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 blah. Let's go. Oh, individual responsibility. We have to talk about this. Winner claims, of course, that individual responsibility is eroded within the technological system. And for this, he draws upon the work of Hannah Arendt, a student of Heidegger, as well as examples of Nazi leadership like Albert Speer and Adolf Eichmann. So let's talk about each of those in turn. I'm still cutting off the text, aren't I? Oh, I can move all the way over here. Wow. Okay. So Dusek writes, the Nazi bureaucrat Eichmann, and I've just added here, this is what Arendt's book, Eichmann in Jerusalem, documents. Eichmann claimed that he was just doing his duty and following orders in scheduling trains filled with people headed for the extermination camps. Well, he did more than that, as I'll discuss in a minute. The Nazi architect and administrator Albert Speer claimed that modern technology not his own morality, was the cause of his behavior. Everyone is just doing his or her job. The complexity of modern technological systems makes it progressively more difficult to assign responsibility for any particular result. I mean, I'm not sure if I buy this. I mean, there's something to it, but I don't know if I buy these particular examples, okay? I'll tell you why. Nazi Nazi bureaucrat Adolf Eichmann. This phrase, banality of evil, comes from Arendt's book, Eichmann in Jerusalem, which documents his trial. You see, Eichmann had fled after the fall of the Third Reich. I think he was living in Argentina or something. A lot of Nazis went to South America. I'm not sure why. I guess it was just a place where they thought they wouldn't be found. But the Israeli Secret Service, the Mossad, tracked him down, brought him to Jerusalem, and they put him on trial for his crimes. Well, you know, human rights crimes, war crimes, all of the horrible stuff he did. He claimed he was just following orders. And Arendt describes him as this, you know, a really banal character, really banal character. You think that evil people would look evil, but here's this like little bureaucrat guy that says he's just following orders. He's still evil, though. You know, Eichmann wasn't just scheduling trains. Eichmann was one of the architects of the death camps. And I've mentioned this film before, but it's a really good historical drama called Conspiracy, which is basically it's a film about the Wannsee Conference, which is where Eichmann and what was his name? I'm blanking on it. General Heydrich, right? Reinhard Heydrich, who was like the overall architect of the final solution. They get all the Nazi leadership together to plan out the final solution. And this meeting actually happened. This did actually happen. So, you can watch it. It's a pretty good historical drama. And you know, Eichmann, yeah, he was a bureaucrat, he was banal, but he was totally evil. He definitely had a hand in designing this system. Same with Albert Speer. Albert Speer is sometimes called the good Nazi. That is an oxymoron. He used slave labor to build firstly, nice, big, glorious buildings that would have ruin value, he called it. Buildings that would look like, you know, something built by the ancient Romans or the ancient Greeks. And later in the war, factories for the war effort. And all of these people claim they were just following orders, but I think that's a bit of a cop-out. I mean, maybe there is something to it, but I don't know if I buy those examples. I think those people were, in fact, evil or made evil. Oh, what's okay. Dieter Vis, I cannot pronounce that name, but he also told him that he would leap laughing into the grave because the feeling that he had 5 million people on his conscience would be for him a source of extraordinary satisfaction. Yeah. See, these guys are not like, yeah, I mean, yes, okay. I get that in a system, you know, okay, we all know about Milgram's obedience studies. We all know about the Stanford prison experiment. Yes, in the right kind of system, you can make good people do bad things. But that applies to, you know, just the random, you know, the Germans who were maybe misled into thinking that Hitler was some kind of savior. This does not apply to the Nazi leadership. Like, these were not good guys. These were really evil people. So yeah, maybe there's a soldier in the Wehrmacht who's fighting. He believes he's fighting for his country. and he's going to fight. And yeah, I'm not going to hold that against him. But the leadership, we're like bloody psychopaths. Yeah. Max, go ahead.
I think we could even talk about like the Nazi bureaucracy or the system as a kind of technology because of how, sorry, how ingrained it was within like the building and progress of the cities where they were most prominent. Like I used to live in Munich, like a 15-minute walk away from the entirety of the Nazi bureaucracy there, because that's where it all started. And like the entire city is like almost designed to like lead towards, well, there's more areas, but it leads towards like that big plaza with the obelisk and like the forum we're speaking. And then
wow,
take a walk over there and, oh, it's Hitler's office. There's the Hitler youth group. There's the Hitler women's group. It's beside like these bars, like these things. Like it was like the system itself was like swallowing up people into its like, well, yeah, it's the political end, but
yeah,
I
it's
think
ideology.
like, its ideology was like very represented in the architecture. And you can tell now, like when you walk in there, it's like empty. Like the buildings are there, but like the feeling is empty. So
wow,
it's like, yeah, kind of crazy.
That must be
that's my
that must be very eerie.
Yeah, it was bad vibes, not gonna lie.
Yeah, very bad. I can imagine. I've never been to Germany. I'd love to go, but yeah, that would be an eerie place, I would think. But that's a good point. Yeah, like and again, we are talking about the system's understanding of technology, rather than sort of rules understanding. So absolutely, I think you're right about that. There are some criticisms of the autonomous technology thesis, though. Sometimes Elu will get some criticism because the claims he makes are rather sweeping. I mean, the little bit of paraphrasing I did, like, oh, the inventors and the scientists don't understand politics, and politicians don't understand science, and the public doesn't understand either one, and blah, 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 blah. Well, this is obviously very general, very broad strokes, right? Maybe it's true that I think the example Dusek uses is the development of nuclear weapons. Maybe it's true that folks like Robert Oppenheimer were naive about what they were doing politically. Oppenheimer was the chief scientist of the Manhattan Project, the secret project where the United States developed nuclear weapons. So, and I think he wrote later, what's that quote? Behold, I am become death. Let me see if I can find it. After he got the bomb working and realized the genie has been let out of the bottle, Let me see. Robert Oppenheimer quotes. Yes. He's quoting from, it's from the Bhagavad Gita. So it's from an Indian text. Yes, that's it. I am become death, destroyer of worlds. After he got the bomb working, that little bit from the Bhagavad Gita flashed in his mind, and kind of realized, holy moly, I've let the genie out of the bottle now, haven't I? But the counter argument is there were politically savvy scientists at the time who knew exactly what they were doing, who were involved with this project, like Edward Teller. So Edward Teller's an interesting fella. He couldn't drive, if memory serves. Yeah, he never drove anywhere. Didn't have a driver's license. Very good mathematician, though. Lightning calculator. Very excited about getting the bomb working. So I don't know. But compare that to discussion of the ethics of the Human Genome Project. I remember this. This was big news. And before the Human Genome Project, Dolly the sheep. I remember, I was a young fellow when Dolly the sheep was cloned. I think I was like 10 years old. And then later we had the Human Genome Project, where we finally finished sequencing the entire human genome. And there was a lot of public discussion about the ethics of doing these things. More public discussion than there had been for, say, the development of nuclear weapons. And public opinion in this case was shaped ultimately by a lot of interdisciplinary discussions. Scientists, lawyers, ethicists coming together, talking, and that information, that discussion eventually propagating, through the media and eventually to the dinner table. Yeah, the Human Genome Project doesn't seem to have been all that autonomous. There was a lot of oversight, a lot of attention paid to it. Are there any other examples of this kind of thing that we can think of that maybe go against the autonomous technology thesis? I admit I have not thought of one. I'll try to. I suppose climate change is probably. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, gain of function research. Yeah, that's interesting. So, in the context of medical research, gain of function research is illegal in the United States, or rather, you can't fund it. Is my understanding. And gain of function research is about modifying viruses to create more infectious versions so that we can understand how better to fight the viruses that are out there now. The worry is that we might make something that we can't control, right? Max, go ahead.
Would it be fair to say that rather than being like driven by autonomous technology or being within like a frame of autonomous technology, we can be within the frame of like what resources are available to us? As in, like, on one hand, like the autonomous technology would have like its own will of its own that we're swept into, but then the technology itself is reliant on like physical parts, like physical materials that I'm not trying to say like, oh, because we build it, therefore we don't control, but I'm saying like, even if they were autonomous, they'd have to be reliant on the materials they could even make themselves, assuming some sci-fi scenario. So it's like, it's within like a realm of like, I was going to say earthly, but then we can go to space as well. I just feel like until something's like totally online, like if there's like a situation where something like kind of transcends the need for resources, or like a very minimal need for resources, it feels like it's still very constrained and like not truly autonomous as a tech, like, because it's not alive,
Yeah, right. It's not autonomous in the sense that it's not, that the technology is not subject to like physical determinism. But I think the claim is just meant to imply that it's not in our control, right? Not that it's like libertarian technology or anything like that, like metaphysically libertarian or anything, right? So I don't know.
But isn't that what rules are though? Like the rules and like techniques, like those aren't, I guess maybe that is physically determined, but those aren't like real things you can hold.
No, but I don't know. All technology is going to depend on some kind of resource or energy, but I don't know, that's just not where the autonomy is in autonomous technology, right?
Right.
It's the same with humans. Like I'm a happy compatibilist. I consider myself, free in the sense that I'm uncoerced, but I still have to eat and drink water and sleep if I don't want to die, right? So, I guess I'm determined, but that's not incompatible with autonomy if you're a compatibilist, which I am. So anyway,
yeah. I think what I was trying to get at is that, like, if we're going to be viewing technology as like an autonomous system that like develops and like controls us as humans on our own, like we have to acknowledge that it's not just like the tools we have. It's like the non-tangible systems that are like created and then like passed down through people. So it's like a technology's rule has to be subject to like someone that's gonna function. And so maybe it's not so much we're reliant on like the metal to build the subject, and then the autonomous technology controls us. It's more so like um the rules and systems that we develop are reliant on like people to speak of them and like to act upon them. But
Mhm.
then even if technology controls us, it's still within like the realm of human error, and like the people that are speaking and are filling out the technologies, are building these things or developing systems, have their own internal fallacies and problems that are going to affect how the technique or how the system develops. Like,
Yeah.
or like the Hitler example, like, yeah, we have a technological system, but the fact that it was full of all these people that had these political views and these racist views, like really shaped the way the technology within that system existed, because it would depend on who I guess I'm saying that carries the rules, but you can't really carry rules. It's those who like
Yeah.
fulfill them and
Um,
bring them into reality.
if I may, I think the analogy that I would draw here is between, say, autonomous technology and life on Earth, right? Life on Earth depends on resources, on information carried in genes, and on rules, the non-random selection of randomly varying traits that increase fitness, right? So life on Earth kind of got started and then developed, and technology is like that. I guess autonomous technology is like that, right? It's not that it doesn't need other things to do what it does, but it's kind of like life on Earth. And maybe the people that carry the rules that you mentioned uh, are like maybe they're the genes of autonomous technology, if that makes any sense. I'm not sure if this analogy works, but it's what you're saying made me think of this. I don't know if this is helpful, but this is kind of like oh, excuse me. Yeah, this is kind of like, I don't know if there's anything to this. I'm just sort of spitballing, Max, but what you were saying was kind of making me, well, maybe it's like that. I'm not sure. So yeah. So I guess that's yeah. I hope it's helpful. But yeah. Uh Tess says, I think perhaps it's not quite nailing it to think of us as being controlled by something else. More like situations where, say, it is possible for a technology to exist, and if we could not possibly stop ourselves from creating it, then we are not in control. Okay. Yeah, like one thing, okay, I like this, but one thing that really kind of stands out here, Tess, is that autonomous technology, it's not in human control, but that doesn't mean that we are under the control of technology. And I guess that's the sense in which autonomous technology need not necessarily imply technological determinism, right? Just because we're not in control of it doesn't mean it's in control of us. Oh yeah, arms race, mutually assured destruction. Yeah, races to the bottom. Nice. Yeah. I mean, and just to go back, being controlled by something more like is possible for technology. If we could not possibly stop ourselves, then we are not in control. Yeah. So in the case of the arms race, maybe there was a point at which we were in control. Maybe the Americans could have said, let's not develop nuclear weapons. But of course, they were developing nuclear weapons because the Nazis were trying to develop nuclear weapons. And boy, you don't want the Nazis to have nuclear weapons. So I guess the Americans had to do it first. But what did they end up doing with them? Well, they weren't even used against the Nazis. They were used against Japan. And once that happened, the Soviet Union said, uh-oh, the Americans have this technology that we don't have when we need it. And then they developed nuclear weapons. And nuclear weapons also proliferated. France and Britain had them. China, India, Pakistan, Israel. Canada had them for a little bit. Canada had American made, they were American made, Beaumark missiles. In my hometown, North Bay, if you're driving down Lakeshore Drive, you get onto Lakeshore, just as you're coming from downtown, you're heading east. On one hand, there's an old airplane. It's an old Hurricane or something. It's an Avro plane, the one before the Arrow. There's one there, and on the other side, there's an old Beaumark missile, a nuclear missile. Just obviously, it doesn't have a warhead, but it's just sitting there, like art. It's a great example of technology not being technology anymore. It's art. Anyway, that's where CFB North Bay is. That's up by where the old NORAD base was, and we had nuclear missiles there, nuclear interceptor missiles. In the event that the Russians launch weapons at the United States, they're going to come over the North Pole, over Canada, and to the United States in the event of a nuclear exchange during the Cold War. So the idea with these missiles was to intercept those missiles, right? And I've never been up there, but it's just interesting that this sleepy little town in Northern Ontario used to have a bunch of nuclear weapons up on the hill. It's crazy when I think about it today. But so that's with the arms race. Maybe there was a point, where humanity could say we can, but maybe let's not. But the Germans were developing them, so the Americans had to develop, and then the Soviets, and then everyone else. And like Tess says, I think at that point we're very much not in control. A race to the bottom, as it were. Oh my goodness, class is over. Great discussion, everyone. That was awesome. Let's stop screen sharing. Now on my the next slide is just the next time slide. And next time, I know you can't see my screen, but we're going to cover chapter 9. So that's women, feminism, and technology. And as I mentioned last time, I want to do this way. It received the third highest number of votes, but it's the next chapter in the book. So we're going to do it next. And then the last one we'll do is going to be anti-technology, if I'm not mistaken. So that's it for today, everyone. Thank you very much. Stefan, I can answer your question. What's your question about citing lectures? Sure, go ahead. And thanks everyone else. I'll see you on Thursday. We'll talk about women, feminism, and technology. Okay, Stefan, so go ahead whenever you're ready. I think that's fine. I'm not even that picky if you're quoting from a video, whether it's mine or whether it's someone else. I mean, like if you were quoting from a movie or something, ideally you would go from a script, but I don't have scripts or captions or anything. So a timestamp is fine. A timestamp, yeah. Let's just say for the purpose of this class, a timestamp is fine. Yeah. You can just say like Redstone 2022, 20 minutes and 23 seconds or whatever, something like that. Just make it look nice. I'm not picky about this kind of thing. I just don't want anyone to accidentally plagiarize anything, right? Beyond that, like just, use the style guides as best you can. Use Purdue OWL, use all those resources. So anyway, you're welcome. Bye. Bye, everyone.